Welcome back, friends. That was an excellent spot because the superfluous of God and the various aromas and the multitudinous hues of color that Sarah was talking about. Therese herself wondered about that as well. She identified herself as a small flower. Flowers in the spiritual life is a constant theme in her reflections. A Story of a Soul, the autobiography of St. Therese Lisieux, ICS version is what I'll be taking this quote from. She will state, I wondered, this was, if you will, the inspirational quote for Garden of Graces. This is just, for me it was. I wondered for a long time why God has preferences, why all souls don't receive an equal amount of graces. I was surprised when I saw him shower his extraordinary favors on saints who had offended him. For instance, St. Paul and St. Augustine, in whom he forced, so to speak, to accept his graces. When reading the lives of the saints, I was puzzled at seeing how our Lord was pleased to caress certain ones from the cradle to the grave, allowing no obstacle in their way when coming to him, helping them with such favors that they were unable to soil the immaculate beauty of their baptismal robe. I wondered why poor savages died in great numbers without even having heard the Lord's name ever pronounced. Jesus deigned to teach me this mystery. He set before me the book of nature. I understood how all the flowers he has created are beautiful, how the splendor of the rose and the whiteness of the lily do not take away the perfume of the little violet or the delightful simplicity of the daisy. I understood that if all the flowers wanted to be roses, nature would lose her springtime beauty, and the fields would no longer be decked out with little flowers. And so it is in the world of souls, Jesus' garden. He willed to create great souls comparable to lilies and roses, but he has created smaller ones, and these must be content to be daisies or violets, destined to give joy to God's glances when he looks down at his feet. Here is the money quote. Perfection consists in doing his will, in being what he wills us to be. If all souls resembled those of the holy doctors who illumined the church with the clarity of their teaching, it seems God would not descend so low when coming to their hearts. But he created the child, who only knows how to make his feeble cries heard. He has created the poor savage who has nothing but the natural law to guide him. It is to their hearts God deigns to lower himself. These are the wildflowers whose simplicity attracts him. When coming down this way, God manifests his infinite grandeur.
That's so eloquent.
It is. And when you were talking about how, and even with roses, they're all the variety of roses or violets. They're all the it just shows forth his infinite grandeur, as Therese would call it.
Yeah, because you think of like the Little Prince, right? That he has one rose. Yeah. And it's so profoundly beautiful to him, and Saint Exupéry's story that he does everything to save her, and then he realizes that she's one of millions, right? I mean, but that doesn't diminish his love for his rose. He just sees, that beauty is there. I mean, it's profoundly, it's a gift. To have all of that laid out in front of us, is neither merited, you can't deserve it. When the spring comes and the daisies and like when the crocuses, make their way through the winter snow, it's such an immediate lift of the soul, right? Your heart and your mind are elevated, moving towards away from the cold and the sleeping of the world to a revived sense of hope. I mean, it's so tangible.
That's right. That's right. So now we'll take a little moment, momentary switch, and we're going to consider Our Lady's virtues expressed in flowers. So I'm going to look to her Evangelical Virtues as considered by St. Alphonsus Liguori. Certainly a classic. And we're going to, of the many flowers, and I will have lists at the end of the appendix so that one could go back if one cares to and take it to prayer. So many more. But I'm highlighting three, and they're the three that come up often, speaking of Our Lady. So the first one is the red rose, evocative of her ardent charity, love of God and love of neighbor. Liguori will state, loving God above all things and loving neighbor for his sake. The ability to love God and then one's neighbor is tied directly to a pure heart. St. Thomas Villanova says that the bush seen by Moses, which burned without being consumed, was a true symbol of Mary's heart. The heart of Mary became all fire and flames, as we read of her in the sacred canticles, Canticle 8:16, a fire burning within through love. And so as St. Anselm will explain it, flames shining without by their example she gives in the practice of the virtue. And then Our Lady revealed to St. Bridget that she never had any thought, desire, or joy in this world, but only in and for God. I thought of, Our Lady is being quoted. I thought of nothing but God. Nothing pleased me except God. Since her blessed soul almost continually contemplated God while on earth, the acts of love she performed were innumerable. So there's the love of God and the love of neighbor together. Father Francisco Suarez, a Jesuit at the time, will write, the acts of perfect charity Mary performed in this life were without number. Practically speaking, her whole life was spent in contemplation, and while she was in that state, she constantly repeated acts of love. Father Francisco, who that quote comes from, is considered by some to be the greatest scholastic after Aquinas. According to Christopher Shields and Daniel Suarez, it's the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Leibniz, Grotius, Pufendorf, Schopenhauer, and Heidegger all found reason to cite him as a source of inspiration and influence. Mea culpa for the pronunciation. As St. Peter Damian says, the duties of an active life did not prevent her from loving, and love did not prevent her from performing her duties. I have another St. Bridget quote. If you want to love me, love my son. Mary desires nothing more than to see her beloved, who is God, love. More?
The rose itself, when you think of because I think, unfortunately, modern science, right, has removed, certain features of the rose to the advantage of another, right? I mean, because we think that we can do that, where we can have a very beautiful rose to the eyes, but when you force it to become only beautiful to the eyes, right, you lose an aroma. Or if you have all of the aroma, then you have all of the thorns, right? And if you want none of the thorns, then you may lose both beauty and aroma, right? I mean, but but Mary, and I think that that's such a perfect image for her, because Mary was content to be the rose of creation, not the rose of manipulation, because her rose had all of the natural beauty that was imbued in the flower, but all of the thorns and all of the scent, like all of that was hers. So she, and you think like with the rosary itself, right? You've got there's a book that was written by Rumer Godden called 10 for sorrow, 20 for joy, right? So and that's kind of like the breakdown of a rose, right? A third of it is the thorn aspect, but the other two aspects of the rose are both beautiful, like either to the scent or to the eye. And that is, Our Lady lived those, like the union of those three elements so profoundly beautiful that it makes one also willing to be able to endure the sorrows as part of, like, to not avoid them, right, but to be present to them. Like, you say that beautiful quote again, that to love did not prevent her from doing her.
St. Peter Damian, the duties of an active life did not prevent her from loving, and love did not prevent her from performing her duties.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
All right, my friends, we're going to continue on with considering Our Lady's charity represented by the red rose. Till then, Fides Oratio.